It's been a long holiday weekend. I hope that you guys enjoyed yourselves. We're going to have fun tonight as we get back from the 5th of July. We're going to go through your questions and talk about the one thing that everybody has in the back of their mind that sets this particular team apart, and that is Patrick Mahomes. Welcome to RGR Football. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. I hope that you had a great holiday. Thank you to everyone who's deployed and keeping us safe and celebrating this holiday safely. I hope everybody's got their fingers and toes attached. I know a lot of you out there, Lawrence, had a good time at one big man's place. Glad to see all of you guys, and I wish I could have been there, but maybe next year. You never know. We're going to talk about Patrick Mahomes tonight. There's a ton of people in the chat, and I love seeing that. I hope that, after a long weekend, a lot of driving I did today, actually, and I know a lot of you did as well. So I hope that this doesn't really drown your expectations, because most of what I spent the weekend thinking about is Patrick Mahomes and how to maximize him and how do they get not just the very best of his playmaking ability and what he does ad lib, et cetera, but how do you make the most of him overall? We're going to get into that, and we're going to answer all of your questions. I'm Ryan Tracy. This is my channel, the founder of Rogue Analytics, as well as this one, RGR Football. You can also catch me on Locked On Chiefs. We now stream on YouTube as well as do the podcast thing on all the audio platforms. And if you are new, a couple of things. If you're going to ask a question, great. Well, you are welcome to it. Please put some question marks at the beginning of your question. It helps me pick them out of the chat and makes it more likely that I make sure that I get to you. Our fearless moderator, Aaron Morrow, will be in here. I know a lot of our regulars and a lot of our member contributors like Stevie Keys are here. Looks like Gooch was in here. Maybe he's not at the moment. Gary, Scott, Ben Brotbeck, everybody's here. I'm going to get to those guys in just a minute, but because it's kind of a family atmosphere, ask your questions. Just let me know with the question mark so I can find them. And if you want to support the channel, super chats are the easiest way to do it. You can put it right here in the chat. I can get something for you as long as you put the question in there. So please do that as well. For all you new members, you're going to have a Rogue Head Huddle come out later tonight. Watch for that. Didn't want to put it up Sunday night because I didn't think anybody would, really be in the middle of it, festivities and 4th of July and all that. So we're going to put it out tonight. You'll see Stevie and Gooch, and I think you're going to enjoy that as well. I think I made this logo a little bit too big. It's like running into the bottom of my face. So I think I'm going to change that. And we're just going to go back to, hey, the fact that we are live right now, that's a little bit easier to see. It's all going to get covered up as we go through your comments anyway. So you new members, look for that. If you want to become a member, it's super easy. Click the join button and we'll get something for you. But I want to start tonight with a question before I get to my main theme, because I missed the end. Neil Ely sent us a super chat just as I logged out on Thursday. I want to make sure I'm going to share my screen over here and make sure that we can get his comment. And it leads into this topic about getting the most out of Patrick. And he said, the expectations are so high for Patrick. Are they too high? And that's an interesting question in and of itself. And Shane, I know I shouldn't be using interesting. I'm going to try to fix that. Do you think that he can live up to them over his next 5 years in Kansas City? And that's a good question. The next 5 years are going to be I almost did it again. The next 5 years are going to be really critical to see what the progression is, because you're right. There is a ton of pressure on Patrick. But it's also with the expectation because of what he's done walking into the league. So in supporting him, I think you support his goals and his ability to meet those goals. So I wouldn't say that they're too high myself because of early MVPs. Anybody with an MVP in their first couple of seasons has a career expectation that doesn't really go away. You can't really get away from that. And that's okay. It's difficult to live up to it. You have to have the right tools, meaning weapons and support and a defense. But as a quarterback, I think that expectation, you being the figurehead of an organization and being the guy that drives the ball everywhere it goes, I think that's reasonable to have. And so I think that's perfectly fine. And I don't think that's too big. The question is going to be is how often can he keep them in the loop? I expect them to be a playoff team every single year that he's under center. There's no way around it. I just don't see any way that they end up not going to the playoffs with him as their quarterback because he equalizes so many things. Now, there are things that could drag that down. There are injury. There are things like that. Let me close this window here, and I will try to continue because there are a couple of other topics that we're going to touch on. I need to be able to track the Super Chats because you guys know me. Once I get to talking, it's going to be trouble. The end of the day, the longevity isn't necessarily dependent on him, but he is the linchpin. So the next 5 years are going to be critical. I think right now they have the window open. They have the starting to churn to make sure that you're replacing things to keep yourself in that window. That's going to be critical. And hopefully that they're able to do that pretty well. I'm confident. Now, my big thing is how do you get the most out of him? And Stevie, very good question. A lot of people are ready to go rogue in here. Over 100 on a holiday night. I'm really glad to see that. Tell your friends, if you know folks that enjoy the Chiefs content and aren't here, make sure you get them here next week. We do it every Monday night, even on a holiday weekend. So I want to make sure everybody gets something. For Mahomes to get to that potential, it's about, again, the weapons and the line and all that, but it's also about what I think is the bigger part right now is supporting Patrick in his decision-making. I think maybe in the back of the mind of the quarterback is that I always have to be looking to score. That's what his mentality is. And we know that. That's okay. But you have to support him a way that maybe helps him help himself. This season, I think, is going to be really, really key to seeing what they do in terms of changing what has been broken in the past to support Patrick all the way around. And that means giving some dedicated run. That means giving him RPOs where he knows if he does hand the ball off, he's still likely to get 5 yards. I think that's part of the holdback for Patrick in that I think especially last season, late in the season, I felt like he felt just subconsciously that if he handed the ball off, he was basically giving up on the play, that he was relegating it to a 2-yard gain at most and hoping that it broke. And so I think that's kind of what slowed him down in forcing himself to take the ball and to throw the ball so much and forcing things deep. That is good. You want to have the home run capability. He certainly has the arm. You have to have it out there. But I think the other key is the coaching between EB and Andy Reid about keeping him focused on taking positive gains. Even if they're only 8 yards, even if they're only 15 yards, you don't have to go for the 30-yard throw every time because you're trying to do it. That's great. But there are going to be lapses underneath. And I think what we've seen is not only with the run game, I think is going to shift a little bit towards power. I think that helps bring the safeties up. I think it helps bring the linebackers up. I think they have to run more counter. I don't think they run enough counter in this offense. Probably the last time that I saw, and I would say that I was happy with it, was probably 17, maybe 18. But the last 2 seasons, while it's been successful, they have gone away from the counter. They've reduced the screen a little bit as well. And again, I think that's about the protection. I think it's about making sure that you can get everybody out where they need to get and actually screen effectively. But I think that those things are what keeps the defense honest. And I think if they had been a little bit better or more well-rounded, in terms of running the RPO for gain, even if it's a small gain, running the screens, I think that would have helped them in the stretch run and certainly in the Super Bowl by not allowing the defense to just stack back there and kind of ask him to throw into their plan. And I think Patrick has acknowledged that, by my count, twice this offseason, that he understands he's got to take what's there, throw shorter, or hand the ball off more. It's one thing to say it. It's another thing to break your own instinct, which is to always chug deep. And I think that's going to be a challenge. What they can do is support him by making sure that they run dedicated plays or at least schemes, route combination concepts that always leave something as the guy that gets loose is designed to be in the intermediate range. I'm not talking about dinking and dunking. I'm not talking about throws behind the line of scrimmage or, tunnel screens to the wide receivers or 2-yard drags. I'm talking about the 8-yard routes. I'm talking about the pivots, the things that make, especially the mid-tier, the linebackers and rolled up safeties, make them work for their coverage. I think that's going to be key. And then if you get the one-on-ones that break, or if you get somebody bracketing Tyreek underneath or over the top, you have the underneath up the side, maybe. Like there are a lot of combinations that can be changed that aren't just the classics. It's not four goes. It's not, I think the sail is a concept that works. It needs to be augmented, I think, to maximize what Patrick will have to take. But I think that's the way it has to go. And that has to come from the coaching staff. And that's what I've been thinking about this weekend. So I wanted to get that out there. We'll follow up with all your questions. Hit me with what you think there. Ben Brotbeck, thank you very much. Always in here in the beginning. Very much appreciate you, my friend. The support is unrealistic, and I thank you. You beat expectations every time since we're speaking expectations. And you did have a question a little bit farther down, so let's get that. Who makes the biggest impact on the newcomers? Brown, Thuney, I'm guessing, or someone else? The newcomers on the offensive line, I'm guessing. I don't know the personalities. It feels like they're both a little on the quiet side. It feels like maybe Thuney's a little bit more of a lead by example guy. I honestly don't know. I haven't had enough exposure to how they work, just those limited press conferences. And that's kind of like a false positive because it forces people to talk. So I don't know that we can rely on that. I think, honestly, it's more about the two of them being able to effectively lock down a side of that line and then allow them to manipulate, experiment, figure out who's going to be the best combination on the right-hand side and with Creed. I'm convinced that they're going Creed. If we get to camp and all of a sudden Austin Blythe starts taking first-team reps, then we're going to have to rethink that. But every indication at this point is that they're going to go with the rookie at center, and I think that's a good plan. I think get him active early, get some lumps in the first quarter of the season. It's going to be a rough schedule anyway. Let that get straightened out so that he has the experience late, because I think his athleticism trumps what Blythe brings in the run game. And I think Creed is a better natural pass blocker. So I think that they want to go that way, and I think they will. Let's see. Let's get into the other questions. I know they're in here. Scott, how are you? When is landlord's agent going to be locked in at One Arrow Drive meeting room and get a deal done? The day before camp is my thought. They're going to have Tyron back in town. The agent is likely to be making a visit sometime in there. Like this part, like right about now, in the next week, guys will start coming home, start tuning up, running, getting in shape a little bit more, like after having some downtime is my guess. There might be a lot of guys that are already back. But this is the time. And so I think it's going to be right leading up to camp, maybe the first couple of days before, or maybe the day it starts, just because you can walk in, sign the deal, and be done. But we'll see. It's going to be good. Let's see. And that's a good point, Stevie. That's the other thing is, besides locking it down and then letting Creed, I think Thuney will help Creed quite a bit as well. I think they already have confidence in Creed, but I think having that rock right there and knowing that, for all intents and purposes, Creed has to worry about the right-hand side. He can set his calls from what he sees, but in terms of making sure that he's not beaten, obviously you can't let somebody cross his face to the left into the gap between he and Thuney, but I think he can kind of allow that to take care of itself because it's Thuney and Brown. So that makes sense to me. We got Scott's. Gary, how are you? Is the gun charge that Frank will it make it easier to release Clark at the end of the year? No, there's no like clause that says if he gets a charge, he's saves at cap or anything like that. It's going to be the same regardless. The only thing that comes is whether it's pre or post June. And it looks like the evidentiary hearing for the first thing in March isn't going to happen until at least October. So I think it's going to be a while. So it is what it is. We'll know a little bit more when we hear, but I mean, they're still investigating. I know the bodyguard said the weapon was his and all that. So there's a chance it could be dismissed. And at the end of the day, it was, wise to make the arrest, but upon investigation and finding out who actually owns the thing and all that kind of stuff, there could be a lot of different outcomes that we're not really thinking besides a charge right now. So we'll see what happens. Scott, what other vet is most likely to get an extension this month? I mean, I don't think they're going to do Brown. They could. I don't think they're going to do Tyreek Hill. They could. Maybe I would say Tyreek is probably the more likely other than Brown, but I mean, I'm trying to think of who else is ending up here. I mean, you could see them if they really like the way Reed plays and what he does for the defense overall, and if you missed yesterday's show, I did put it up on Sunday because it's a breakdown that Matt and I do every Sunday. I wanted to keep it steady. I think Jaron Reed could be the biggest acquisition for the impact on the field. I know Orlando Brown is Orlando Brown, and he should be an all-pro. This is going to be a lot more pass block snaps, and a lot more vertical sets, or at least 45 sets, than what he's used to. So I'm trying to give him like a little bit of leeway to not have to be all-pro and hit that expectation right away. So I think that said, coming off of Fisher, it's hard to make that big jump unless he does play at an all-pro level. Whereas I think that Jaron Reed can help everybody on the defensive front, and you can see that probably from day one. So if they really like it, they could extend him. I mean, it's just a one-year deal at this point. If they like it and they like the way it's working, you could pop another couple of years on there just off of an initial look in the first, say, 4 to 8 weeks. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. It might be a long shot, but I don't think it's crazy. Lego. Think we will see Noah Gray and Kelsey line up together in the goal line attack. Maybe. If they do, I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. It's going to be a drag from Kelsey straight across the formation to the far weak side, and it's going to be a little pivot with Noah Gray going back out to the flag. You're not going to run behind those two. They might be decoys. If you line up together on one side, you're going to run behind Brown and Tooney on the other side. Maybe with Trey Smith as a sixth offensive lineman, I'd love to see that too. But no, you're not going to get pushed from Noah Gray. He won't line up in line. If anything, he'd be like, Travis is here and he'd be behind the line of scrimmage a little bit. And you could maybe run some interesting jet stuff off of that. But if you did a pop pass behind those two, then you have really, really quick fluid blockers in space. You just can't let any penetration come in between the B and C gaps or it blows up. So I think that's going to be tough. I don't know that we're going to see that. Again, if we do, I think it's going to be a passing thing. So we'll see what comes of it. Okay, scrolled too far. I missed somebody. No, I got Ben. Okay, good. I did make it. Jake, thank you for yours. We appreciate that. Rogue Nation. Okay, it is checking out. I know a couple people don't dig it because it's too close to Raiders, but I think we're getting there. And guys, because I've been yakking for a while, I just missed a bunch of comments. I scrolled too far and now it only gives me like the latest 100. So let Aaron know and re-ask your question and I'll get it. I was thinking about Spag's contract. When is it up? Would that have any impact on extending Matthew? Opinion, would coach be a tough loss if they went with another team outside of Spagnuolo? Good question. And thank you for the support, Jake, as always. I don't know the specifics of Steve Spagnuolo's contract. I'm going to try to Google that right now while we're talking. But I will say this. I don't think Steve Spagnuolo will leave unless he gets a head coaching gig. I don't think he's going to take another coordinator job anywhere else, even if it's that coordinator / head coach. You know what I mean? Like assistant head coach or whatever. When they try to give you a small bump in title in order to make it an actual promotion. There are rules in the NFL about stealing coaches that you have to offer them a promotion from where they are. So if you're a coordinator, it's either assistant head coach or it's a head coach job. That said, I think Spags has been through a lot as a head coach, a lot of struggle, to tell you the truth. And I don't know if he's going to want to leave what is, quite frankly, a nice gig where he deals with the defense and Andy Reid takes care of everything else. I think that's quite a deal. Let's see here. I'm trying to find the details about his current contract, and I am not finding anything that I trust. A lot of blah, 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 blah from sources that I don't think have any more details. So it's difficult on coaches. I'm sure if I went back, I wanted to say it was a 3-year, which had been 19, 20, and 21, right? If it's expiring, I expect them to extend him. Again, unless he wants to ride it out and see if he gets a head coaching gig. Now, I think the enemy is once again going to be top of the list for a coaching gig, head coaching gig. So I don't know. If I'm wrong and it was a 4-year, then obviously that doesn't play in. But I think it was a 3, so that would be after this season. I wouldn't be surprised to hear that they extend him soon, especially if they can get a little more oomph out of it this year. That said, I think it might have an impact on extending Matthew, not necessarily in the negative. I think they work together pretty well. And I think once you get Matthew done, which I think you, for all intents and purposes, have to do, I think that leads towards, if anything, support for Spagnuolo continuing. I know the numbers, the ranks aren't that great. We haven't seen them jump into the 10s, right? But I do feel like in certain ways they have improved, and in certain ways they're still working on roster changes to improve more. That said, your second one, opinion, which coach would be a tough loss if they went to another team outside of Spags and Bieniemy? I think they're putting a lot of faith in Mike Kafka right now. I think Mike Kafka has a serious investment in Patrick Mahomes. I think that might be tough. Joe Blamer is going to go over and work with the wide receivers. Yes. Because Greg Lewis is running the running backs. It wouldn't be insurmountable, don't get me wrong, but I think that might hurt a little bit just in terms of having the same three voices helping Patrick all the time. On the defensive side, I think certainly it's Brennan Daly. I think Daly, if Spags did leave, would be the internal most likely, followed by House, would be my thoughts. Yeah, those guys are good at what they do. The question is changing that role to a coordinator. Anywhere on Katie Sowers? Well, I don't believe she was she out at OTAs? I didn't see anything on her being at OTAs. I think that coaching internship is specific to training camp, so it'll start at camp. My guess is, given her experience, you're going to see her coach at camp, and then you're going to see her get hired. That is my thought. They just hired another Krug in the front office, so I think there's something to be said about diversifying more females in the organization as a whole. And I think Katie Sowers has a good track record. She's got a good coaching record. So I think it's a boon to have her, a unique voice, a new voice that can come into this organization and help them. I do expect her to not be slow in the uptake in any way. I expect her to hit the ground running, and I expect her to perform well enough that my guess is that they will probably bring her on full-time after training camp. And I think that's usually, trying to remember, I want to say that is an option that they do just as camp, not camp breaks up, as the preseason breaks up. I don't think it is tied to camp, because the Chiefs break camp a little bit early after, it's 1 week past the first preseason game, and then they break camp and they then practice. It's still training camp, quote unquote, but it's not at camp. It's then at the facility. So I don't think it's tied to when they leave St. Joe. I think it's tied to when the preseason ends. That is my thought. Dee, I saw a video of Trey Smith and the boys club. Yep. And on the whiteboard, and he was, and what his favorite plays are. Boy, he's a highly intelligent lineman. Do you think that helps him start sooner? I agree. He is a highly intelligent guy. I think he understands what the offense is trying to do, not just what he's trying to do. That said, he's got a doctor in front of him and a former All-Pro in front of him in terms of Kyle Long. I don't know that being intelligent and being able to pick up the offense is necessarily going to help him beat those guys out, because it's one thing about understanding what you're supposed to do. It's another thing to execute it. And I think until I see different, I know they're big on him. I'm excited for what he can do in the run game in particular. But until I see like reps at camp where he's getting in there with the ones and really able to execute the offense, not just understand his assignment, then I'll start to wonder about whether he can beat those two guys out. If he doesn't beat them out in camp, that's not anything wrong with Trey Smith. That's going up against two wildly veterans. Third, if you think that Blythe's going to get reps at guard, not to mention Allegretti and Wiley, like he's got a ton of experience in front of him. So if he doesn't make it to a starter level role this year, if he doesn't make it out of camp, if he gets to mid-season and he hasn't played yet, don't worry about it. It's going to be fine. I think he has the talent to do it. And I think as long as they feel he's physically cleared, I think he's going to be fine. And understanding the offense takes a lot of time. I think the way that it evolves and the way that they change particular calls and how they go about blocking for Patrick himself, I think that's something that takes him getting used to as well. I'm more concerned about Creed because he has to do all that. It all has to be on his shoulders as the center. So I am going to be a little bit more closely watching him to see how he's progressing. I think Trey will get there. I just don't know if it's going to be early or not. Let's see. Samuel, welcome. Which wide receiver would elevate the offense the most by winning wide receiver 2? I mean, quite frankly, it would be Demarcus Robinson. Demarcus Robinson has made some big plays in his career in the Chiefs. He's made a lot of bad plays too. He's dropped the ball. He's missed places where he's supposed to be. If he put it all together and was a consistent force and actually attacked and was able to stack DBs better, he showed a glimpse of it. He ran that skinny post late in the season last year that had a guy on his hip, and he actually put him where he needed him to be, still ran the route without getting deflected, and I thought that was a glimpse of what he could have always been. If he can put that together and do that every week, he will raise the roost. Byron Pringle is right behind him. I think you've seen flashes from Byron as well. But again, we haven't seen enough to see what does he do in man. Can he beat it consistently? Can he get off of the blocks? Because when they're going to double elsewhere, they're going to try to bring down and man up some guys, and those guys have to take advantage. To be truthful, though, it's not about the wide receiver 2 spot. It's about the slot spot, and it's about Mecole Hardman becoming the next guy after Travis and Tyreek. That's really what it's going to revolve around. Steven, power O-line suggestion. Brown, Smith at left guard, Humphrey, Tooney, Niang. I don't know why you would ask both Trey Smith and Tooney to switch positions because they are opposites. I would just leave them in there at left and right. And otherwise, I'm with you. Niang's not a power guy, though, you guys. He played spread in college. He's not an earth mover, despite his size. I saw nothing on his college film that is like he can lock guys up and just bulldoze down the field. So I don't know if that's where you're going. I'd rather see Brown, Tooney, Humphrey, LDT, and then Niang, and then Trey Smith. That's what I'd like to see. Then I think you have support for him on both sides, and I think Niang can do that. I'm really curious to see if he can beat out Mike Remmers in camp. We got to remember, Niang is basically a rookie. So we're putting a lot of faith in him to be able to come along, learn the offense, learn the techniques as well. He's been, training in a vacuum during COVID. So it's tall order, but I think that he's got the talent to do it. I just want to see where he's at. Let's see here. Patrick, I'm curious to if you feel 100% comfortable with the roster come week 1. I'm curious as well. I'll also tell you this. I don't think the roster for week 1 is all put together yet. I think we are going to see some training camp changes, particularly at the DB level, maybe at the linebacker level. I think the Chiefs are going to look to trade some of their offensive line talent and pick up some of those spots. I don't know if it's done at wide receiver. If no one steps forward, if no one becomes the clear number 2, maybe they do pull a trade. Maybe they still have a signing that they feel that can come in. I don't know. It's a lot of question marks beyond the stars, right? So I don't know. I have a general feeling that whatever we open the roster with at training camp is not what we're going to have on the roster day 1, week 1. So you have a very good point. I'm very curious myself. Let's see here. Looks like I missed a super chat. I hate to do that. Thank you guys for all the support and all the super chats. I am going to get to you, though. I promise. Okay, looks like I'm still in the wheelhouse. I'm just slow. Let's see. I am looking for question marks. There we go. There's Dre. How are you, Dre? Do you think Butker is going to clean up his kicks this year? I certainly hope so. I kind of felt that the misses were a matter of timing, of comfort, of just general confidence and everything getting the ball to the tee for him, to the spot. So I think another year removed with another holder. I mean, Colquitt's still around. He's still helping. I think that is more of a comfort, I think, to specialists than people think. Just having the same 3 guys, I think Tommy kicking, but with Colquitt around to be able to help out, I think that's still going to be important. I will not be surprised, you guys, if someday, if Dustin Colquitt is a coach in this organization. Not surprised at the slightest. I'm trying to remember, how long is he under contract? I want to say I don't know. He is currently in town, and I'm looking. I'm looking. Was it just a 1 year? Is he not actually there? Interesting. Okay, maybe not. I know he's in town. I'll tell you that. At the same time, I'm really interested to see if Sherm shows up randomly. You know what I mean? I know he's moved on to his other life beyond football, but maybe he shows up at camp. Maybe he shows up to practice sometimes. Like another guy that I feel could be a coach someday if he wanted to do it. I will say this too. Don't be surprised if you don't see a lot of guys coming back as coaches. It's a different life, and quite frankly, it's a grind. And I don't know after playing all that if everybody wants to get back into it. You got to really love this game. Scott, can Creed Humphrey be better than Mitch Morse at his caliber? Whew. That's a tall order. I will say this with confidence. Based on his injury history, I think he can be more available than Mitch Morse. If he can get that good, I don't know. I would generally want to say yes, but until we see him against NFL competition and not practice, I don't mean camp. I mean playing real games. I'm not going to know. I'm not going to really know and how I feel about it until then. And even then, how I feel about it isn't necessarily right. So I will share that when we get there. Justin Trova, welcome back. It's been a while. Do you think that all the new players will be ready for other teams? They haven't changed much. Quite frankly, some of that is a bit of a concern. Everybody will point to the offensive line in gelling, getting together as a group. It's also about trusting guys to carry out their assignment, knowing that maybe what you're doing is based on it, or maybe it's supposed to go hand in hand. That happens on the defensive side as well. I'm not 100%. It may take. I mean, the first quarter of football last year was rough. The first quarter of football this year is probably going to be cleaner, but I think it's still going to be some question marks. You know, it's going to take a little bit of time. Luckily, I think when you have the X factors that they have with the quarterback and the receiver and the tight end, I think that gives you some time. It's going to be what it is. Okay, I rechecked, and I do believe that Dustin's practice squad contract expired, according to Over the Cap. So he still may able to be around a little bit, though. Let's see. Next question mark. Lego, how are you? Do you think that we will see Mahomes do any quarterback sneaks or try to rush for more than 5 to 10 yards? I mean, he's going to break the pocket and run during the season. In the preseason, you're not going to see any of that. And I don't know that Andy's going to call another sneak. I know he shouldn't be scared to or reluctant. I think Andy may just stray away from it. It's a lot of contact in there. So I can understand if he just said, no, we're not going to do with 15, period. Can you explain COVID-19 issues going around? Is it true that if you're not vaccinated, players cannot play? No, that is not true. They can remain unvaccinated. It just makes it a lot harder. They have to go through daily testing. They have to stay away from everybody else at least 6 feet. It's basically like they're still in COVID protocol and the rest of the team is not. They have to travel on different buses, different planes, different hotels. They cannot leave the hotels when they get to when they're away game, when they get to the other town. They have to have only room service. They cannot go out to eat. They cannot participate in any team meetings amongst the rest of the hotel staff. So it makes it really, really difficult for a non-vaccinated player to participate and be on the same page with everybody else. It does not mean that they cannot play. The league wants the assurance by having everyone vaccinated that they don't have to deal with breakouts, missing games, missing teams, any of that. They don't want to go through that again. So the league is pushing everybody and making these rules to try to get guys to get vaccinated who might be reluctant. They're also doing a lot of education because so far all the player arguments that have been out there have been uninformed arguments. If your choice is you don't want something man-made put in your body, that's one thing. But the arguments that the players who don't want to get vaccinated keep making is that they don't want to treat a disease they don't have. That's just a lack of education because vaccines are not treatment. It is not treating something you don't have. It is preparing you to not have it, just like polio and measles and everything else. That's what a vaccine is. And so there's a lot of education that needs to go around. We got to remember the vast majority of every NFL roster is between 21 and 26 years old. So if you're not a science major, maybe you don't know any of this. And so I think a lot of that comes back down to trying to get everybody on the same page so the guys understand what it is, what it's doing, and what it's for. And I think that will take away a lot of the concerns about players not wanting to do it, especially given that they're at risk quite significantly, especially with this new Delta variant going around. Ray, I was also hoping to see more patented Andy Reid screen game, but now the Colonel line, but now is the Colonel line best for that? Is it best for that? No. Are they as athletic as they were 2 years ago? No. But they can still run screens. The guards in particular, Tooney's a very good screen blocker. Long's pretty good. LDT's pretty good. Trey, that's the challenge for him, is he's not the athletic foot speed kind of guy, right? He is a more straightforward power gap kind of guy. That doesn't mean he can't do it. It means he needs some time to train up and get better at it, is my thought. So no, it's not as good a fit as they were a couple years ago. Doesn't mean they can't do it though. Creed Humphrey is a great screen blocker in college as well. So not worried about that. How with long out, are we going to Trey Smith to start? No. Long is supposed to be back for training camp. Everything that we've seen says that he should be available to practice when they start practicing. Now, the first 5 days of camp are like adjustment period. So they'll do walkthroughs and stuff. They're not actually practicing. They're not doing hitting or 11s or even 7s, I don't think. It's walkthrough. So he's got that extra little leeway. I expect him to be back, but I expect him and LDT and Wiley and Trey Smith to all take reps. If Long walks back in and they hand him all the first team reps, that tells you something. And I know that they were rotating. LDT just came back for minicamp. He hadn't been there for all the OTAs. So I think he was with the ones with the 2s and the 3s. He and Smith were kind of rotating back and forth, as I understand it. And we'll see what happens. There's no automatics. That particular position is going to be a battle, I think, until the final roster, to tell you the truth. Let's see. Should we switch to a base 4-4 defense with Honey Plager playing linebacker? No. That doesn't do the job that you need to do. You can't cover spreads with a 4-4, even if he is technically one of your linebackers, and maybe Dan Sorensen is one of the others. The problem is, if you're doing that, it changes all the rules. In fact, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a scheme versus rules video to kind of explain about, it's not just where you line up in the scheme. It's about the rules of engagement as well. Much like anybody who's ever walked patrol or been out on assignment, rules of engagement are important. And that's what it comes down to. If anything, I think you're going to see them go to more of a 4-1-6 and they play a lot of dime already. Dime might become their most used personnel group this season. Last 3 or 4 years, it's been nickel. But dime's been coming on since Spags got here. So no, I don't. That alignment doesn't help you very much, especially when teams are just going to spread you out and make you jump right out of it anyway. So let's see. Scott, are we going? Who's going to taking the load of kickoffs and punts? That's up for debate right now. That's one of the interesting things. I think the team doesn't want it to be McCole Hardman. I think they want someone else to take over those duties to give McCole as much chance as he can have to focus on playing offense and getting better at wide receiver without having to handle those duties. That's what I think they're looking for. You could see anyone from Pringle to Callaway to Fountain to, I don't think Fountain. I know they gave him a few reps, but I don't think that's going to happen. I even heard Fenton was taking some. You could definitely see some of the other DBs that have a little bit of experience. I don't think they're going to beat any of those offensive guys. So that's kind of what I think. Who do you think will retire a Chief this year? Wow. Good question. I don't know. Is Eric Berry finally officially retired? Maybe he does. I'm trying to see what else. Fish is playing in Indianapolis. Schwartz says he's coming back. If Schwartz has some realization that he doesn't feel he can play, I think he would retire, and I think he would retire a Chief. Cole, when it comes to time for cuts following preseason, What position group do you think the front office will focus on upgrading? I mean, it depends how the linebackers play, and it depends how the corners play. If they get DeAndre Baker back, I think they're going to leave that position group alone a lot, because I think they feel like with Baker, they have another young guy that they can rotate in that has the upside that they're looking for. Could be wide receiver too. I put nothing past it this year in those position groups that are without named starters at every spot. Yep. Everybody say hi to Aaron. Couldn't do the show without him. How do you think Hardman and Pat will do this year? You know, I thought Hardman was going to break out last year. That's my fault for, going a little overboard. But that's how I felt, at the end of the day, that's how I felt. So I don't know. I could be wrong. I want to feel like he's putting it together, and that with the opportunity of being number 3 in the passing game, I feel like he could do it. It's just about whether he's on the same page with Patrick. Everybody else seems to have been able to, and I'm not sure about him. Spana, I like that idea. Saunders at tight end 3. I mean, and goal line linebacker, as far as I'm concerned. I think it's going to be Blake Bell. Right now, it just seems like they're just not going to give up on the experience there and a little bit of blocking power. I'd love to see Jody Fortson push it, but hey, I just don't know. Scott, would this year be the year to see if Thornhill has a breakout season? I think it's in his potential. I know that they took it easy on his knee this OTAs, and I don't know why. Hopefully that doesn't mean that it's like bothering him and the injuries acting up. I don't know. Maybe they just realize, like Matt and I talked the other day, that we're talking about if they make it back to a Super Bowl again, and that's my expectation, that they're the favorites to go to the Super Bowl and maybe win it. You're talking about 60 games in 3 years. That's 3 extra games beyond everybody else, because that's just a ton of work on your body. So maybe they're just doing that, knowing that, Juan had the injury and then he had another long season. Maybe they're just being cautious. But I will say this. I like the fact that when he wasn't on the field, a lot of times from the beat reporters that I talked to, he was standing with Steve Spagnuolo, going over calls, going over what was going on in the field when he wasn't in there. Mental reps is one thing. Mental reps with the coordinator is a different thing. And I think that is very indicative of trying to set him up to be a guy that breaks out, that runs the defense from the backside, let Tyron ad-lib a little bit more, is my thought. So I definitely think that he could have a breakout season. Steve, under what conditions position would you be willing to rehire Dorsey if Andy and Clark wanted him? A, Andy would not. B, under the conditions that he diversifies the staff that he wants to bring in. I think the Chiefs have a very, very good scouting staff right now. Maybe there's room for 1 or 2 additions, right? But Dorsey would want to bring in his own people. He's consulting for the Lions right now, and I know that there's at least somebody else that's on there because of their connection with him. It's like he's not going to let that go, is my understanding. So what little I hear from up Michigan way. So Julian's back. How are you, man? I think the Chiefs' outcome of all games should be time of possession. Yeah? Are you trying to bait me into the running debate? I mean, if that's what it boiled down to, it means that you're protecting Mahomes with enough run support to keep it close. I mean, that said, the more you run, the more the play action works. I know the play action works. You can listen to PFF, and every other analytics guy out there, including myself, will tell you play action works even if you don't hand the ball off, because they have to respect it. The difference is, I think you get an additional respect, an additional buy-in when you do run the ball with some power. So it's not just the threat of handing it off, it's actually handing it off sometimes. I think that does loosen up the defense, and I think it will allow you more of those home runs that Patrick wants to hit. It's the same concept of running counter. Like, give him a look one way and go the other way, because it helps you. It's instinctual for good players to react to it, and you use that against them. And I don't think there's going to be a lack of instinctual players that the Chiefs are going to face. So I think that will work. Thanks, Julian. Ben, how are you? Another super chat. Thank you very much. We appreciate the support, you guys, as always, from all you super chatters. The channel does not keep going without you guys. I'll get your question when I get to it here. Do you think the Chiefs will get some home field advantage with a battle within the AFC division? If they do it like last year, the expanded format, only one team gets home field. It's got to be number one. So, yeah, you got to hope that the Clevelands and the Baltimores and the Indies and the, I don't know who else is going to be in that Indy division. Who's the runner-up down there? But like Miami, you got to hope that they all beat the crap out of each other and that you can skate through. I expect the Chiefs to be the number one seed. I'll just tell you that flat out. Mr. Big Phil, unfortunately, no, sir. Bashaud Breeland is a Minnesota Viking. He did sign up there. He had a pretty heartfelt goodbye to Chiefs Kingdom, but it was a deal that he felt that he wanted to take. I wonder if it's because if he plays well, I think it's more likely he can get a long-term contract from them in the future. That's my thought. But no, he will not be a Chief. Jeremy, who are the 5 wide receivers that make the 53? I think there's 6, first of all. But Hill, Hardman, Robinson, Pringle. And then I'm leaning right now towards Callaway and Fountain. But Marcus Kemp plays a lot of special teams. He's going to push for that. There could be another guy brought in. I know everybody wanted to talk about Golden Tate. I don't know. But I don't think that competition is near over. Let's see. Ben, there's his question. I knew he was in there somewhere, man. What does the CB room look like? Ward, Sneed, Hughes, Baker, and who sticks? All a bunch of 5 to 10 guys. I think Hughes makes it. Rashad Fenton will be the 3rd starter. I mean, in today's defense, you start 3 corners. Rashad Fenton is a starter. It's Sneed, Ward, and Fenton until somebody gets hurt or they acquire somebody of a lot of talent. I don't see any way those guys get unseated. If somebody gets hurt, maybe Hughes gets some time. Hughes looks a little rough playing against the Chiefs offense, though. I'll tell you that. From what I've heard, I don't think he's ready to step in. Baker's the question mark. I know he's been training. He's been cutting. That's good. He's cleared for that. He's not cleared to practice, as I understand, at this point. So he's not close to being ready to be on the 53 and make an impact. I think he starts the year on the PUP. I just don't think he's going to get all the way back from that broken femur. That's a significant injury. So the question mark will be who else sticks. Could it be Boodle? Could it be Character? I don't know. I got to see some real training camp reps and see what happens. So that's where I'm at, Ben. Thank you again for all the support, as always, as well as every single supporter in here. Very much appreciate it. Steve Concepcion, will we miss Sammy? He was injured a lot, but when healthy, he was in the playoffs. Oh, boy. You're absolutely right. When Sammy was on, he was on. The question is going to be how often, how much does that come back? I think they'll miss him at times. I think he's going to have some games that he explodes for the Ravens. Hopefully it's not against the Chiefs. But I think Sammy's going to be Sammy. And I think at the end of the day, if the Chiefs couldn't figure out his hamstring issues, his soft tissue work that kept him out of games, I don't think anyone's going to. I think it's just a problem Sammy has to deal with through his career. So I don't think he's going to be any more available for the Ravens than he was for the Chiefs. So at the end of the day, hopefully somebody grows into that role. And while likely won't be as explosive, as productive, will carry a lot more of the load week to week. That's my thought. Mr. Big Phil, I think they're going to be okay. I think they're going in the direction that they want to go in. I'll say that. I think the coaching staff wants to emphasize safety play, and I think they're willing to be a little looser with the talent at corner. That seems to be what the organization is doing. I can't tell you that's what I do, but they seem comfortable. So I think at the end of the day, they're going to give up a lot of yards, is my guess. Hopefully they can slow down the points, and that's, I'm guessing, is their goal. Scott, can Kareem Humphrey be better than Mitch Morse? Okay, I answered that one before. Sorry, I'm just slow getting to him, you guys. Every answer I make, it takes me a little bit longer. Longmorn, thank you for the support, as always. Long-time member around here. I've been thinking about that. With an improved O-line, Mahomes will struggle even more with his desire to wait for deep routes to develop. Early season success with runs could help. I agree with you. especially if the line comes together like I think it will eventually. If that happens early, he's going to feel like, hey, I got time. I'm just back here. I'm just going to hang out and wait for somebody to come open. If I give Tyreek Hill 6 seconds, he will get open, period. And so I don't care if it's on a deep comeback. I don't care if it's on an in route or if he does that deep over, he will get open. And so that you're exactly right. That's the temptation. But I think that's how the staff controls it and keeps him on the safe and narrow by forcing more routes in the intermediate area, not running 4 goes as much, not running, deep overs with deeps as well. I think it's also about handing the ball off and calling runs. I'm not talking about RPOs where Patrick gets to choose, because Patrick says he understands he needs to run the ball more. Doing that is a different thing. I think it is about calling runs more often to protect Patrick from himself and, quite frankly, to beat up the defense a little bit. Let's get physical in here. This offensive line is going to be better at beating up the defensive line of the opponent than last year's or the year before's or any line actually under Andy Reid in Kansas City. This will be the most physical line they've had, and I'm here for it. Ray, and thank you, Longmorn. Appreciate it. Cheers. I would also like to see more patented neighboring scheme play. But is this O-line the best fit? Yeah, I got that one too. Sorry, guys, I'm just going slow. Again, they can change up the way that they do. I would not be surprised to see some middle screens as well. The interior handoff things, don't be shocked if Travis and Noah Gray in particular is getting those inside shovel passes and that kind of stuff. Who is the most likely, Scott? Who's the most likely to play the most epic 2021 prank on this team, similar to what Colquitt Winchester did to Sherm? That's a good one. If you guys missed it, I talked with Mike Burton. He's got a great personality, but I don't know that he's that kind of jokester. I've only talked to him the once, so maybe I'll know after I talk to him a few more times. I have to think that the specialists are going to keep that going. They kind of take that on as a mantle. So I'm going to say it's Winchester and maybe Butker this time. I have not gotten a good vibe for the personality of Tommy Thompson, so I don't know. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. Good question, Scott. Ray, do you see a path for Fortson to make the initial 53-man roster? The only path that I can see, and you guys know I'm polling for Jody Fortson. The only path that I see is that he makes so many catches in his opportunities that he outweighs Blake Bell's ability to block. I don't think it's particularly close. I think Jody Fortson's the more talented athlete and the more talented player than Nick Kaiser. They played Kaiser last year. Again, that's because they didn't have the blocking aspect. I think the question is going to be, can Fortson force so many plays that it makes the staff think about, maybe we don't have to have the tight end blocker. Maybe this is more important to have this talent. It's going to be a tough one for Jody. I expect him right now. I would tell you it's a long shot for him to make it and beat out Blake Bell, but I do expect him on the practice squad. I do expect him to stay a Chief. That's all I can give you for certain right now. Let's see. Looking for question marks. Scott. Will Thornhill and Parks battle for the one spot during training camp, or is Parks battling for another spot? Yeah, he's not going to unseat Thornhill. He's going to be his backup. He's going to be when they don't want to play single high underneath stuff, when they want to play too high, you're going to see Parks come in as the third, is my thought. They'll give Dan a few more reps off, let Dan do his thing underneath. But then when they want to play too high and really protect over the top and let Tyron roam the middle, I think it's going to be Parks that you're going to see high a lot with Thornhill. He's got that ability. He can also come down and play some nickel for you too. He's a guy that I think is really, really under promoted right now is a good way to put it. And if you guys want to see anything on the draft class, Aaron, thank you for reminding me. You can go over to rogueapc.com and grab that. The code is still good, Matrix 20. You guys are welcome to, or is it Matrix 21? I can't remember. But you can always get my stuff over there, and I leave that up for you guys. There's a locked 21 as well, or a locked 20. Mr. Big Phil, I don't have anything new on Frank. You've heard everything that I've heard at this point. Not much going on this month. Okay, got Scott's. Okay, and I scrolled too far, evidently. Oh, Gooch is back. Watch out, folks. Super Chat Marathon is on. And thank you, Stevie, as well. I saw yours, but I can't put it on the screen. Scrolled too far. You guys are monsters. Thank you for all the support. Kansas Carolina. With the big salaries of the Chiefs roster, do they need to get younger? And will Tim Ward see any snaps? Whew. They do need to get younger. That's part of what we're seeing at cornerback. It's also part of what we're going to, I think, continue to see at wide receiver, unless it's like a one-year guy. And maybe that's Tate. I don't know. I know a lot of people want to see him, but I think that bumps McCole out of his perceived role. So I don't know. But yeah, they definitely need to get younger at the other spots. It happens every time, especially right now. In 2 years, I think the cap's going to go up significantly, that I think maybe you have more room. So it is what it is. They just got to get through the next couple of seasons. Scott, you're right. You do not have to be vaccinated to watch this channel. I guarantee it. Michael Ford, thank you, sir. Welcome to the memberships. You'll have another one tonight. We've seen Patrick hit and miss or hurt and miss time, get hurt and miss time the past 2 seasons. Heaven forbid that becomes significant time. Who and what caliber of quarterback would you have back up Henny? I think Henny showed you that he's got like the drive to throw his body around if he has to. I think Chad's smarter than that. That was a playoff game scramble that needed to get done. I think what you'll find is you'll see them shorten up because he doesn't have the arm. You're going to see a lot more deception if that were to happen, and Chad's going to be in there. I also think they will then rely on that big, bulky offensive line and run the ball more. What's going to have to be key is the defense going to have to step up there too, because the points per game will go down. Avery, welcome back, buddy. What newcomer to the division do you feel poses the most interesting challenge? Good to see you, man. And thanks for the Rogue. Yeah, I'm getting a couple more of them. Everybody keep making those. Rogue, yeah, that's what I like. What newcomer? I tell you what. Miners is in Denver, right? I think that's who got him. Like they did some work to their offensive line. Teddy hurt the Chiefs last year. If it ends up being Teddy Bridgewater, he could put up some points on him. He's crafty. Again, this is the experience trumping the physical talent. You know what I mean? But if this whole thing with Aaron Rodgers comes through and he's got a line that can actually block for him, that's going to be tough. So that's what I'm going to pin it on right now, just to see who gets the most out of their additions to help the quarterbacks. Gooch, to piggyback on a question, which current Chiefs outside of Mahomes retires as a Chief? Oh, okay. What current Chief outside of Mahomes retires as a Chief? Kelsey, Schwartz, Fisher, but he's not current Chief. You're right. Man, all the young guys in the secondary. I don't know about Frank. I think his Seattle days may go down as the best in his career. He may want to do that when he retires. Probably Tyreek. I think I know everybody's a little nervous about his contract. At the end of the day, I don't think Tyreek wants to play for anyone else. And whatever the contract rigmarole happens, I think it's going to happen, and he's going to retire Chief as well. Great question, Gooch. Always. And yes, the super chat still works. Thank you, sir. Appreciate the support. Biggest supporter from day one, Mr. Brian Gooch. Khalil, how are you? What do you think about Mike Hughes' potential role? I still feel like Hughes, there's something going on with him. I don't see him living up to what I projected to him out of the draft. It's several years on now, and he's got some progress he needs to make. I think he could eventually become a starting nickel. I don't necessarily like him on the outside that much, especially because he doesn't fit this team's role for the outside. Long, tall man. He could move to safety too. You never know. But he clearly, something has prohibited him from making the progression that I thought he would make coming out of college. And hopefully Sam Madison, Dave Merritt can fix that. It may not happen right away. It may not even happen this season, but They traded for him for a reason. They have faith that they can correct some of the issues that he has and make him a productive player. That otherwise they wouldn't have given up a draft pick for him. Complain about Veach all you want. He's not giving anything away for free. I'll tell you that. FLDB, thank you for all the help lately, man. It's spotty for me, Gooch. It only works occasionally. Well, hey, you proved that it works, so thank you. Let's see. Cody, how comfortable are we with the linebacker room? Bring in another vet. I mean, yeah, if you can make it work. The problem is you have two very young guys that you spent high draft picks on that you have to get experience for. That's tough. Anybody that you bring in slows down their development. So I don't know if they do it early. Like if they got to the point where Willie it isn't clicking for Willie any farther than it has, which I doubt very highly, maybe you would have to do something. If they try Nick in there with Hitch and it's not working, maybe they try somebody, just because you have to maintain a level of performance enough to get to the Super Bowl again. It's Super Bowl or bust every damn year from now on. But every rep you give to someone else slows down the development of those two guys, which I'm guessing that I feel, and I'm hoping the team sees as their linebacker duo of the future. I don't know. That's a tough one. Because Jordan Hicks is out there too. Like there's two guys with significant experience, KJ Wright and Jordan Hicks, that, I mean, could help somebody. Do they fit this scheme? Not necessarily. So that's part of it as well. John, will we keep 3 quarterbacks? We keep one on practice without losing someone else. Not on the 53. It'll just be Henny and Mahomes is my thought, especially because they might have to keep 10 offensive linemen. I think it's going to be Gordon. I think Gordon will go to the practice squad. I don't think that's going to be a problem getting him there either. But I don't think Shane Michelle's going to beat him out. John, how are you? Which ex-Chief and current free agent would you most like to see return to Kansas City? Houston, Nelson, or another? It's a tough one for me. I was stomping up and down. I was the proverbial junior scout stomping on the table for Justin Houston when the Chiefs got him. My family has a background with Georgia football. I've had a lot of friends play there. I just kind of pull, and he in particular I pulled for. I'd love to see him come back. I just don't know that relationship is there for what he's able to bring to the team at this point. Nelson didn't like his time in Kansas City, you guys. He didn't like the vibe of this team, and quite frankly, I don't like the vibe of him. He is a guy that rings to me of a me first guy, not a team first guy. And I don't think that fits this locker room. What I'd love to find out is that Eric Berry can run again. I'd love to see him come back just in a role that is just part-time and be in the room, be a coach. I don't know. Trying to think of other guys that have left the team and are out there. I mean, Mitch Morse just signed a huge contract, or I'd ask him to come back and be an interior backup. Not push his concussion history and have him there in case of. You would not skip a beat. I think that would be great. But, that's a long shot, especially with a new contract. We'll see how long he stays. Let's see. Dan says we'll score 40 each game. Is that too optimistic? Dan has a lot of good ideas. I'm not quite there. I'm confident they can score 30. I'm guessing we'll see a slight uptick, I think, this particular season, just because I feel like, despite the wide receiver 2 question, I feel like the offense itself is going to be in better tune. The offensive line does most of that just by letting Patrick be Patrick. So I think they're going to be more around the 32, 33 points a game. We'll see. But I won't say anybody's overly optimistic. You never know with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and what they can do. So good for Dan for throwing it out there. Virginia, welcome back. What do you think about our new fullback? I think he's a cool guy. I think he's like 29 already. So he, like Anthony, is coming to the Chiefs later in his career. I think Anthony was 28 when he got to Kansas. No, 27, something like that, which for a fullback is old. So, I mean, I like what he brings. He's versatile. He plays teams. He can get tough yards when he has to. He's willing to block. He's a good pass catcher. I loved when I sat down and talked to him. He was a great guy, no nonsense, really easy to talk to. I mean, you guys get to see the highlights of the interview, but even off camera, like just really easy to relate to. I like the guy a lot. I hope that he gets a little bit more of a role. I wonder if the H-back role that they have to use, and I think they're going to go to for Noah Gray, I wonder if that rubs off on Mike Burton too, and they get a little bit of two guys playing that role or doing some similar things. I think there are more options to use a guy like that, a tough, not super fast, but tough receiver fullback type in a different way. And if anybody in this league is going to be creative with coming up with new roles on an offense or new ways to use old roles, it's Andy Reid. So I'm confident they can get something out of it. What about Powell? Is he one of the receivers that make the roster? I think so. He's down there with Callaway and Fountain. He's not starting. I don't think he beats out DeMarcus or Byron. I'm going to tell you that right now. Maybe later in the season he overcomes them, but I'm talking about making the 53. I hope so. I want to see him do it. I like what he brings to the table. The 1 year production makes me a little nervous. Dan's super high on him. So I hope that Dan is 100% correct. I'm just not there the same way Dan is right now. Will Hitchen take a pay cut to stay in Kansas City? I don't know. I don't know that he'll be offered one either. Again, they've invested back-to-back years in the linebackers. Extending and keeping Hitch longer, I'm not sure is part of the plan. Let's see. Welcome, Dylan. I just saw that Aaron said that and I wanted to make sure. Welcome, Winston. Let's see. John Furr. Should the Chiefs pick up Richard Sherman? I don't think so. I think the cost is too big. And quite frankly, I don't think he's as versatile as he used to be. The Chiefs don't want to play zone all the time. They want to play it 60-ish, hopefully less this year is my guess. So I don't think it's a great fit. If he wants to move to safety, I'd take him in a heartbeat. And I'd sign him and Juan to play deep, and I'd play cover two shells with man underneath it all day long, all the time, and dare anybody to beat him because I don't think it would happen. I think Richard Sherman could be the next guy to make like a Hall of Fame career out of changing from corner to safety. I think it could happen. Let's see. We're going to wrap these up and try to finish everybody up here, you guys. I know I have at least one more super chat. If you want a super chat and you got something you got to know tonight, get it in here and we'll get to them. Aaron Lee, Mahomes, 50 TDs, 5,000 yards, MVP, Super Bowl champ with new O-line. Certainly within the possibility. All of those things are possible with him at any time. Will they all happen at once? I tend to doubt it. But 3 out of the 4 ain't bad. Ryan, is there any AFC teams that will be better than the Chiefs this year and why? I mean, you could make an argument for some. Browns played them pretty tough. It wouldn't have been if Patrick was in there the whole time, but did they improve much? I don't necessarily think so. It looks like they're trying to give Lamar a more dynamic wide receiver group. If that works, do they start scoring 30 points a game? Then maybe they're in contention. I mean, I think the Colts could put it together. I think Carson Wentz could bounce back. Does that mean that they could really contend with the Chiefs? No offense, Frank Reich and Carson Wentz, but I don't think so. And I'm a big Chris Ballard fan. He's put a great team together, in my opinion, but I don't think they're ready to contend with the Chiefs. If Los Angeles finds the miracle well of not getting hurt, the biggest contender for the Chiefs might be the Chargers in this whole AFC. Their issue is having their talent on the field. And if they fix that, I don't know. They could be the scariest one. Wink, is there a reason you didn't mention Powell as one of the 5? No, only because I don't think that he's got a solid spot. I think he and Callaway and Fountain and maybe some of the other guys, Kemp included, are all fighting. And I haven't seen anybody live yet, so I can't really put him anywhere. But from what I understand, I think it's still D-Rob and Pringle ahead of him. So I don't see him becoming a starter anytime soon. I just don't know what those last 2 spots are going to be. Let's see. Does fullback Yes, Josh, absolutely. They wouldn't have brought him in. They want to have a fullback when they need him, and they want a guy that will be a core special teamer. When they have to protect Patrick, they want a fullback in there. I think that's what it comes down to. Cole, I have 6 wide receivers: Hill, Robinson, Pringle, Powell, Hardman, and one other. I'd prefer Fortson as a wide receiver who can play tight end if necessary. Yeah, I just don't know if they feel the same way. I don't think Fortson exploits speed and coverage the same way. I think he, physically is a little bit more suited to the tight end role, split out tight end kind of thing, but he's no burner. How good is Jerick McKinnon? If healthy, he's a great number 2 back. He's a guy that can be electric, that can, catch as well as anybody, has a chip on his shoulder, and is approaching the downside of his career. So he needs to make some money by making performance show. I like his addition here. And from what I hear, he's practicing very well. Oh, that's not a question. Sorry. Don't mean to jump in your conversation. Oh, went too far again, you guys. Sorry. I'm looking for the question marks. What about Mike Hughes? Where does that leave him? I think he'll be on the roster. I think he'll be one of the 5. If Clark is suspended for the first part of the season, who do you see the starting D line being? I seeing it being Chris, Noddy, Reed, and Dana is what I see as the starter, like the first down. And I think it'd likely be Taco Charlton that comes in on third down or designated pass rushing situations, and that's where they'll start. I think they'll try to sprinkle in Kando, maybe Ward. I know we saw a couple of good plays from Ward last year. Is it enough to get ahead of the rookie? I don't know. I just don't know. We're going to have to see what happens in the preseason. Let's see here. Scott, what UDFA are you excited to see in training camp? Yeah. Probably Zane Anderson and maybe Riley Cole as well. 2 guys that I think are uber athletic but undersized. Like, let's see what they can do. You never know. Let's see here. Julian. I think the Chiefs on D will be better against the run, better against the previous years before the Bolts on D. The secondary schematic will be more off-man, cover 5 yards off, etc. Your thoughts? I don't know about playing that soft. I think Spags wants to really mix it up. And I think he's more like, let's play like true zone, like 8 yards off, or let's play man. Like, I don't think he likes the middle ground as much. So maybe I'm wrong, but I think it's going to be either or rather than that kind of like half off, half man turn kind of thing. You know what I mean? I don't know. And with Bolton on the defense, the question for me is, I don't think he's fast enough to play the will. So I think Willie's the will no matter what. So he's going to be over at the Sam because Hitch isn't going to go anywhere but middle. He might be overpowered a little bit by tight ends and stuff. So I want to see how he handles physically until he gets those replacement reps where he goes in for Hitch when Hitch is out and actually plays the middle where he belongs. It feels kind of like asking Bolton to play non-middle linebacker is kind of like putting him at a little disadvantage for what he's built for. But, I mean, it'll bring out his competitiveness. We know he has it, so I think he'll be okay. I just want to see him in there, running mic reps. That's what I want. Colby, is this year's Patrick's last chance to dig his cleats into Brady's throat? I don't think so. I think despite what everybody thinks, Tom Brady's going to keep playing until, we think he made a deal with the devil. That's my guess. Top 5 free agents the Chiefs could sign this offseason. Off the top of my head, KJ Wright, maybe Golden Tate, Melvin Ingram. Yeah, that's what I got so far. I'm so out of not thinking about free agents right now, man. Sorry, Max. That's all I got for you. Let's see. Gonna clean up the rest of these questions, folks, and we're gonna call it a night. You think that Cornell beats out D-Rob and Pringle? Okay. I haven't heard a peep about Darwin at all. Not good, not bad, just not nothing. And that is not a good sign. I don't think he makes the roster. I think he's probably on the practice squad. Jimmy, wide receiver, corner, linebacker, edge. Which one of will the Chiefs add a significant player for before week 1? Not currently on the roster. If any, it's going to be wide receiver, I think. I think everybody else, the linebackers, especially the edges, anybody that's worth signing, they're not going to sign until after week 1 because they're all veterans and they're all going to be guaranteed if they sign prior to week 1. So I think if any of those positions get signed, it's going to be like the week after week 1. So they don't have to guarantee their full contracts. That's a business decision. That's just kind of the way that things go. Canadian Chief, think the NFL will ever allow to put doctor on his jersey? Watching hockey and LDT at the Canadians Bolts game tonight, you guys. Well, good for you. I don't think so. I think it's stupid that they didn't do it. I said it at the time. I made probably the worst performing video of the history of RGR when I said, hey, this is dumb. Let him put doctor on his jersey. And nobody watched it. So I think not only does the league not interested in doing that, I don't think that the fans are that uproarious about it. I mean, obviously Chiefs fans are going to be more invested, but I don't think they're going to do it, man. Okay, we're going to hit this last one from AP Payne. Thank you, sir. Is Pat's foot cool, or is it going to be like other turf toe dudes? Worse than a knee, in my opinion. Definitely easier to re-injure, that's for sure. I know everybody saw that little running around thing he was doing at Bobby's place the other day. He looks like he's fully healed. I don't think it's going to be an issue. I think that was a freak thing. It looks like the surgery has gone really well and the recovery is well on its way. I think he's going to be fine. But thank you, AP. Appreciate the support, as well as all of you super chatters. I think we have one more question that is in my queue. Who do you think will be that fullback? Who do you think that the fullback position has been, for a lack of a better phrase, largely phased out? It's sad to me. It's because of the emphasis on the passing game and what you're able to do with more pass catchers on the field, not lined up behind the line of scrimmage. That's really all it is. When it comes back, it's going to come back to, you know, when everybody starts doing what the Bucs did, and they're playing, you know, 7 and 8 guys in coverage and 4 of them deep, all of a sudden, light boxes, they're going to start seeing more running again. It's just too easy to do it. Scott Taco could be a sleeper. And yes, I'm working on Rogue Nation merch as well, because I want you guys to have something that's yours as well. So that's going to wrap it for us. I think I got everybody's questions. Thank you guys for being here. We're going to do our normal thing this week. Dan's on vacation, so he'll have something on Tuesday. I'll try to do something for you tomorrow night. We'll have the Chief in the North on Thursday night live as always. So thank you guys for being here. I appreciate you spending the time, and all the super chatters. Thank you very much. You members, check it out. I'll have Rogue Head huddle up for you later tonight. Have a good one, and I'll catch you next time.